live stream to get up and going. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Natasha Zouves here at NewsNation headquarters. We are tracking this big breaking news this morning in the Idaho murder. So many new details coming down. 18-page affidavit. We are hearing from one of the surviving roommates for the first time what she saw that night. DNA found on a knife sheath, trash taken from the Kohberger family home in Pennsylvania, a footprint at that scene as well. Also cell phone information from that night for the very first time. Bryan Entin is joining us live right now. And Bryan, you just got out of court in Moscow. This is just a couple of miles from the murder scene in the Moscow area. I know you've been poring over this as well. What information are you tracking right now? What is standing out to you in this moment?
Yeah, there's a ton of new information, Natasha. Court wrapped up a little while ago. They allowed cameras inside, but not to feed out live. So we should be posting that video pretty soon. Kohberger was there, his first time appearing in court in Idaho. It's pretty quick and standard. They read him his charges. Bond was denied. The defense, he has a public defender here, asked for a bond. And the prosecutor argued, like, no way, we shouldn't have a bond. We found this guy 3,000 miles away from here. And the judge said no bond for now until she gets more information. So that was the latest from the hearing. But you mentioned it, this 19-page. I'm still going through it. I read through it once, but it's like so detailed.
I know.
And I was reading it on my phone, waiting to get into the hearing. So I printed it out. I'm like going through every word now. But there's so much new information in this new probable cause affidavit.
Absolutely. Can I ask, what was Kohberger's demeanor? Because this is the first time that you were actually in that courtroom with him, looking at his face. What did you notice?
Yeah, so it was the first time I saw him in Idaho. I saw him in Pennsylvania. Gosh, was that the day before yesterday? Right. He's very serious. He he's getting his PhD in criminology, and you can tell like he appears to really know what's going on. Like, he never has any questions. He nods at the judge throughout. He always says yes or no right away when she asks questions. Like, you get a vibe like he understands the court system. And he's just sort of a stone cold face. He didn't really look at the audience at all today. The people sitting, the victims' families were in the front row right in front of us, which was awful because they were just so sad to see. Like, they went through and read all the charges. So they read the names of the victims. And like when they read Kaylee Gonzalez's name, her mom just broke down crying. And Kohberger never looked back or anything like that, never looked at any of us. In Pennsylvania, his parents were there in Pennsylvania, but they weren't at the hearing today in Idaho. In Pennsylvania, he did make eye contact with his parents and sort of nod at them. But today, not any eye contact with anyone except for the judge that I could tell.
That and I mean, of course, so emotional for the families, and I know that you've been in touch with them as well. Let's break this down piece by piece, because there is, as we said, a lot of information, new information this morning. Let's start with what we're hearing from the surviving roommate. One of the surviving roommates describing what she witnessed that night. She says that she saw the killer. This was interesting. She said she opened her door. She heard crying. She saw a figure clad in, quote, black clothing and a mask covering the person's mouth and nose walking towards her. She describes that figure as 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular, athletically built with bushy eyebrows. Apparently, he walked past her. She was standing, quote, frozen in a frozen shock phase. He went towards the glass door in that house. She locked herself in her room after seeing the man. She said she did not recognize him. And investigators placing the time frame of those murders between 4 and 4:25 a.m. Bryan, it's striking. This is the first time that we are hearing any sort of testimony or any sort of report from one of the surviving roommates in that house.
Yeah, this I did not see coming. We haven't gotten, we've gotten some leaked information and sourced information that we've been able to get. Some of it that we didn't even report because we were just waiting for the affidavit to come out. I didn't see this coming. The fact that one of the roommates saw the killer, like you just described it, the mask. She also said that she heard crying, heard the dog barking at one point. There's a lot of questions right now because you'll remember, Natasha, the police weren't called until the next morning,
right?
In late morning. So if she saw all of this, a lot of people are wondering, like, why didn't she immediately call 911? Of course, like, she may have just been totally like shell shocked, frozen. Sure. I mean, I can't even imagine being in that situation, afraid that he was going to come back. But, it is very interesting to think about the fact that, we didn't know that she was even awake.
Right.
and
And I
that
wanted to
that she
follow up
saw
with
all of
you.
that.
I wanted to follow up with you on that, Bryan. And for reference, we are talking about page 4 of this affidavit. I believe that our viewers can see it on screen. I do want to point out that we can see comments. You are joining us live right now as we're doing this live stream. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and post them, and we'll try our best to get to them. But Bryan, you right away point out that question that is top of mind, and immediately it's the one that I'm seeing as a response to the TikTok that we put up. I'm seeing as a response on Twitter. If she clearly saw a man that she did not recognize in the house, if she was frozen with fear, do we have any record that there was a 911 call from that house in a timely fashion at all around her saying that she saw that early that morning?
No, we don't. We don't know about a 911 call until the next day. What is also eerie, and this is in a different part of the affidavit, is that so they were tracking the cell phone of Kohberger, so that's how they've connected
Right.
him to the scene, one of the ways. But he also, according to the cell phone records, the cell phone was back near the scene the next morning,
Mhm.
like between 9:12, I think, and 9:30 a.m., something like that, after the murders, which would indicate he may have gone back there, I don't know, to do a drive-by after what he did. So the reason I'm bringing that up is I'm just thinking, like, was she maybe scared that he was still around, which he was. I mean, he came back the next morning. Maybe that's why she was waiting. I don't know. I don't know the answer to it, but you're right. That's the question everybody has right now.
Right. Absolutely. And going back to page 4, we are just hearing so many details from this. You mentioned, she opens her door. She starts hearing things quite early on. So 4 a.m. She says she hears what sounds like Gonsalves playing with her dog in one of the upstairs bedrooms located on the 3rd floor. She hears who she thought was Gonsalves say something to the effect of, "There's someone here." And then a review of records showing that Kernodle's phone showed that it could have been her as well, because she was using TikTok at 4:12 a.m. They do make that note. That the surviving roommate, looks out of her bedroom, doesn't hear or see anything amiss, opens her door a second time because she can hear what she thinks is someone crying coming from Kernodle's room. She hears a male voice say something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." Um, she opens her door for that 3rd time, and that's the quote that we were reading earlier. She hears crying, and then she does see that figure that she doesn't recognize, clad in the black clothing, clad in a mask that she freezes, 5'10", likely a male, not very muscular, athletically built, bushy eyebrows. This is a shocking amount of detail that we're seeing coming down, Bryan. And I'm struck by the fact that she starts hearing crying. She starts hearing a male voice saying, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." What on earth is going on in that house over the span of 25 or 30 minutes?
Yeah, it's eerie. I mean, to get that level of detail. Again, we didn't know any of this. I mean, we were under the assumption that they slept through the whole thing. It just goes back to that something that's still setting in for me, like how much police have known for a very, very long
Sure.
time.
Yes.
They have, I mean, I've been at every press conference, I've interviewed the chief, I've interviewed all the PIOs. They have been so good at, I don't know if the word is like poker face or whatever, like just, we don't know anything. We're looking for a suspect. I mean, they knew a lot. They've known a lot
Yeah.
um, for a long time. And, kudos to them. I mean, that they had a buttoned up case here. But I still can't believe how much they knew going way back. Even the interview with the roommate. I mean, everybody's saying that they were asleep and they had all this information.
Absolutely. And, we were speaking with former CIA officer, former FBI Special Agent Tracy Walder a few days ago after Kohberger's initial arrest. And she was saying, knowing his background, and it's an extensive background, right? And Bryan, as you've been pointing out, a chilling background. The fact that he has his undergrad master's working towards a PhD in criminology, that perhaps knowing that and that he was a person of interest potentially, it would cause investigators to be even more tight-lipped than normal. I do want to go quickly. We're hearing that Paige watching on YouTube Live is asking, is Bryan's family still supporting his innocence at this time? Is there any information that we have on that?
That's a good question. I mean, they were in Pennsylvania, but you have to remember, no one had this information then, not even the defense lawyer. So, obviously they probably are going to be looking through the affidavit. But so we don't know the answer to that in terms of today. They weren't here. I mean, it's a long way. It's
It
the
is
other
a
side of the country. but they were not in court today.
I do want to touch on the new information in terms of DNA that you mentioned that we're seeing in this affidavit today. There was a knife sheath that was found next to Maddie Mogen's body on the bed. A quote, tan leather knife sheath processed by the lab, has USMC, United States Marine Corps Eagle Lobe anchor insignia, stamped on the outside. And the lab in Idaho was able to locate a single source of male DNA on the button snap of that knife sheath. And then interestingly, we also see that on December 27th, they do take trash from the Kohberger family home in Pennsylvania. Can you talk a little bit more about this? By the next day, by the 28th, the Idaho lab is beginning to piece together those two pieces of DNA. Is that right?
Yeah, so it sounds like, and remember, this isn't all the evidence they have. This is
Yeah.
just what they wanted to present to justify the arrest. So there's still some missing pieces here, but it
Wow.
sounds like the car was the initial connection. It was, from what I read, and again, I'm going to read it like 3 more times closely,
Sure.
but it was an officer in Washington State who, they were looking for this white Hyundai who spotted the car. Okay, so that was the initial connection, the car. And then they ended up, they started surveilling Kohberger, figuring out who he was. And then the DNA came into play. He gets back to Pennsylvania. They get DNA from the trash, like you said,
Right.
send it back to Idaho to the crime lab. And that's how they connect that piece of the puzzle. But the cell phone, I mean, we can't forget about the cell phone. I mean, a lot of this is cell phone stuff. And I know I tweeted out the link and it's on newsnationnow.com. Like if you read through, I mean, there's maps. This is like I'm not sure I've seen like this reminds me of like a federal probable cause. Like I've never seen a state level probable cause this detailed. I mean, it is insanely detailed. There are pictures and maps, and on top of the DNA, they have been tracing him through his cell phone.
Right.
And not only the night of the murders and the morning after, which is super creepy that the cell phone was back there in the morning,
Right.
but 12 times they say that he was in the area of the house 12 times before the murders, which would go back to this stalking theory. Was it planned? Was he looking at the house? So I mean, it's all in here.
And I was struck by on page 12, they are talking about this phone connected with him, that the phone was not using the cell tower close to the murder scene between 3 and 5 in the morning. They do state that, but then they also, very quickly point out, that a cell phone can either be at a different location while someone is committing a crime. And we're looking at page 12. I think we have it up right now. Either a cell phone can be left at a different location while a crime is being committed, or someone can turn off their phone prior to going to a location. But
Yeah.
very interesting, as you said, Bryan, that, the car is seen in an area, no license plate, that a white sedan seen in that area, during the hours of the murder, of the suspected hours of where the murder takes place. And then that car is seen going on a road that eventually leads to Washington, Pullman, Washington. So very, very interesting, Bryan, and absolutely chilling that the phone then pings in that area the following morning.
Yeah, no, it is. I think, and again, innocent until proven guilty.
Of course.
I'm trying to remember to say his phone. I mean, can't say it's his phone that they were tracking, but the fact that the phone was back in that area the next morning, I don't know. That's just a detail that keeps standing out to me. Like, that if he went back, just I don't know. It just creeps me out. Like if he went back to look at the house again the morning after,
Yeah.
before the cops got there.
Bryan, we're getting a question on Twitter from Amy. Why did the roommates call for an unconscious individual when they did eventually make that 911 call?
We still don't know the answer to that, and we're still waiting to get the 911 call. I mentioned like this is only part of the story.
Yeah.
There's still so much we don't know. So we're waiting on the 911 call. What was I going to say about that? Oh yeah, there's this gag order now where the lawyers aren't allowed to talk. Anyone associated with the case isn't allowed to talk. And the judge said any information that isn't public record, which this is now public record, cannot be talked about or released. So I think we're not going to I don't think we're going to get that 911 call until it comes out in court, I think, based on that order.
Yeah. When the lawyer that was originally aiding Kohberger with the extradition earlier was saying that his client looks forward to exoneration. Are you, I mean, with how closely you've been tracking the minutia of this case, Bryan, are you surprised at the level of information and the amount of evidence that they do have potentially linking Kohberger to this scene and to this crime?
I'm not surprised because having been here and seeing the 60 FBI agents and the mobile command center, and there was a sense that there was a lot happening behind the scenes, and for them to arrest him the way they did and bring him back, yeah, I knew that they had to have some really, I mean, they had to have some solid evidence. I guess I just wasn't expecting them to lay it out like this in
Yes.
19 pages. I mean, step by step. And again, there were a lot of people criticizing the police
Yes.
for the last couple of months. And I get it. There were nights where I was hard on them too. We weren't getting a lot of information. The families were upset. It was frustrating.
Yes.
But I just reading this now, and I saw the head detective in court this morning. I saw a couple, and this is a small police department. We saw
Right.
these guys around a lot. They were the ones coming to the house. And I saw them, both of them in court today, and I just wondered what they must be thinking. Like,
Mhm.
there's got to be relief that they got him, and there's got to be a feeling of like, look at this, guys. Like, everybody was calling us out, but
Right.
look what we've been up to.
Yeah. Eugene from Twitter, let's get to this question first. Do you think the killer's thesis might have been on the firsthand experience of a serial killer? And I think more broadly, Bryan, the question is, what do we know about what kind of topics made Kohberger tick? What kind of topics he really was interested in looking more into?
It's a good question about the thesis. We've been trying to get it from DeSales University.
Yeah.
In Pennsylvania, where he got his master's, they initially put out a statement just saying how awful the tragedy was. And I've been following up, like, can we get the thesis? Can we find out what his research was? They haven't responded. The campus has been closed. I went to the library. Someone told me, like, if you go to the library, sometimes they file all the master's theses, but it was closed. So I'm very interested in what the thesis is. Sorry, what was the second part of the question? I forgot.
So I know we don't have any more information on his thesis at this time. We do have some information about potential research that he was interested in or research questions that he put forward. Is that right?
Yeah, the Reddit survey. That's a good part of it, Natasha, because this is another part that shocked me. The Reddit survey is in the probable cause. That Reddit survey they've known about, which is so interesting because when his name first came out, we found the Reddit survey, but that is also part of the investigation where
Right.
he was trying to get into the mind of potential criminals and what they think and feel. And apparently that's important to the police. That's part of their justification for all of this arrest.
Absolutely. And I do want to ask Ramon from YouTube saying this first cell phone ping around the house was back in August. Could he have been planning this since then? I mean, and cell phone data if this is the first time we're really getting more information about this, Bryan, and it is purely speculative, right? We cannot know innocent until proven guilty, et cetera, et cetera. It is I keep using the word striking, but it keeps being the word that comes up for me. It is striking to me that we do see a pattern of this cell phone being near this area. It was not pinging on towers in that area at the time of the murders. But then was back again the following morning. So, I mean, interesting that this phone was connected to this area several times.
Yeah, and is it possible with his knowledge of what he knows in his studies that he thought, don't bring the phone when you're doing it because they could,
Yeah,
certainly possible.
but and
But
that's
like, and
important.
again, let's just remember. I mean, like, we haven't heard from his attorney, so
100%.
there's going to be so we had the first hearing today where they read the charges. There's going to be a status hearing a week from today where they're going to talk about the preliminary hearing, like scheduling it, when it's going to happen. At that preliminary hearing, he will make a plea. So he could plead not guilty, which at this point, from what his other lawyer said, that will probably happen. And then his lawyer will have a chance to say things and ask questions and
Yeah,
even question potential witnesses. So, we are getting one side of this. I mean,
absolutely.
granted, it's all, it looks like really good evidence, but I just wanted to bring that up.
I do appreciate that. And, his team, when it comes together, will have to have time to sort through the evidence and to visit that site as well. One more point that I just wanted to touch on, Bryan. We spoke to a lawyer this morning on NewsNation Live and again the morning before. Both of them expressed real concern that there was a cleaning crew that showed up to that murder scene in Moscow and pretty dramatically backed off and stopped whatever action that they started. Do we have any information on how much cleaning, how inside of that house? Because both lawyers yesterday and today said that that could be grounds for a mistrial. It is so important that every I is dotted and every T is crossed, and there are no missteps since investigators believe they do have their guy.
So we don't know how much progress they made in the house. We don't know exactly. So we know the reason it was stopped, it seemed like the intention was to clean up the house and return it to the landlord. And then something happened when they started cleaning where the police said that a local court said to stop this process and leave it the way it is. I would assume all DNA evidence and anything like that was already taken from the house. And then we know they did these 3D images of the
Connection
house.
has gone out. Oh, Bryan, I got
Am
you.
I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, there's not great service here. They already did the 3D imaging of the house. But what was interesting was, I think it was yesterday. Was it yesterday? Or the day before? It was yesterday. All my days are running together. They allowed the public defender for Kohberger, the Idaho public defender, to go into the house.
Yeah.
And see it. So I don't know, maybe that's part of the reason they wanted to keep it just so that it would be fair that she would be able to go in and review things. So yeah, I don't know that it will be means for a mistrial or anything like that, but clearly at this point they're saying back off, let's keep it contained.
Okay. I appreciate it, Bryan. I know you're going to keep bringing us the latest, but I think let's just lay out like the top headlines for today before we leave our viewers. You know, we are looking through this 19 page affidavit right now. We are hearing from one of the surviving roommates what they witnessed that night. We are learning more about a timeline. We are learning about DNA evidence on the sheath of a knife, DNA evidence that was collected from the Kohberger family home in Pennsylvania. We didn't mention yet there was a shoe print that was also found at the scene. It was processed with a protein stain that can detect cellular material at the lab. It shows a diamond-shaped pattern like a Vans shoe. I just want to mention that as well. We have information on that white car without a front license plate in that area, eventually going to a road that leads to Pullman, Washington, and critically, as you've been telling us about that cell phone data. Is there anything else that I'm missing that you want to highlight for our viewers before we send it back?
No, you covered it really, really well, Natasha. The only thing I'll say is like, and I'm guilty of this too, is like, we get really into the facts of the suspect. And I just want to say, again, that like what the families are going through, having been speaking to some of them, seeing them in court today, yes, there was relief. This is what they tell me. Yes, there was relief when the arrest was made and even a sense of joy. But there is this overwhelming feeling. First of all, you have to be in the room with the person who is accused of killing your kids, and you're like 7 feet away from them. I mean, how do you even do that? And then this overwhelming feeling of knowing that now you have to go through this whole court process and you have to be at the hearings to show support for the process and to be there for your child who's deceased. But like that is a whole nother challenge for these families that's just now beginning. So like I guess I just wanted to say that we're going to go through everything today on NewsNation, but like I just think people have to remember like what they're going through too right now, because it's almost like some people are like, okay, they found the killer, everyone must be, so like no, they're not. Yeah, there's some relief, but now it begins this whole new journey.
I completely agree. I'm so glad that you pointed that out. And Bryan, I know that you've developed a personal relationship and trust with many of these family members as well. Is there anything else that you want to add, that you want to make sure we're thinking about? Any insight that you can give to Kaylee's family or anyone else and what they're experiencing right now?
No, I think that just about sums it up. Yeah, I think everybody's going to be a lot more quiet now. I think people they don't want to say anything that could jeopardize the prosecution. So I think you're going to see it be kind of a much more quiet situation going into the court process.
I do appreciate that. And Bryan, there is no question, as this trial, if and when it goes forward, there will be excruciating details that come out of it. And I cannot imagine a more horrific way for these 4 young people to have lost their lives, and I cannot imagine what these family members are going through. I really appreciate you bringing the spotlight back to them. It's incredibly important. And we certainly thank everyone for joining us for this breaking news. Our next newscast is going to be Rush Hour, which is 5 p.m. Eastern right here on NewsNation. And of course, we will continue to send push alerts to your phone. If you haven't downloaded the NewsNation app yet, please go ahead and do so. We'll keep you updated throughout your day. Follow Bryan Entin as well on social media. He'll keep posting the latest, but certainly appreciate your time. Bryan, thank you so much. We'll let you go.
See you guys. Thank you. Bye.